guess the time change, I didn't even notice. Noon Eastern, though. I know that's the time when it all kicks off officially. The news is coming in hot and fast, people. T. Higgins wants a trade. Hold on, Bengals fans. Relax. I got you. Chris Jones got paid. Congrats to big old number 5, my old Yogi partner. Matt Ryan is going to join us. We're going to talk about all the quarterbacks, the Bakers, the Russell. What's that fit like going to be in Pittsburgh? What should Kirk Cousins do? All of that. Plus, the Dynasty latest episodes are out. Ooh, they were spicy. Matt Hamachek joins us and takes us inside the Brady-Belichick breakup/saga. Free agency! We've got Matt Ryan on the show. Very excited. We've tried to get him on, rope him on all season. I think we wanted him on Hamilton, if I remember correctly, at Super Bowl, and I had this whole plot to have Cam Jordan on the show with him, and then CBS did it, so we didn't want to do it anymore. But Hammy, as I call for Hamilton, there he is, there he appears. I'm really excited to talk to him and get in his head about all of these quarterback situations that are opening up. And of course, to give love to Bill Baker.
Yeah, it ended up working out perfectly. Well, we would have loved to have him on in Super Bowl, but all this big quarterback news right now, the Cousins rumors to Atlanta, there's nobody better to talk to about all this stuff.
Can't wait to talk to that. All right, Hammy, appreciate you. Thanks for adding so much nice color to that situation. Appreciate you worked so hard on this stuff all day yesterday, so I so appreciate it. And so the negotiating window opens up at noon Eastern today, but there's still plenty of actions. We're going to get to Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield with the heavily teased Matt Ryan here in a second, but we do want to start with the latest going on this morning. We have reports that T. Higgins has requested a trade. Dun, dun, dun! T, my guy, we talked to Super Bowl. You're with Chase. What's wrong with you? So he's reportedly frustrated. The team hasn't had any negotiations. I don't like that. Communication is everything in this business, in the world, in interpersonal relationships. Communication is key. It's everything, and they have not apparently talked, and that is frustrating. And they haven't talked about a long-term deal since last March. Excuse me? Squeeze me? He wants to move on. He wants to say, I want to test the waters. And I get it. And I do know the alarm bells, ding, 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 are going off around Cincinnati. And rightfully so, because the Bengals are in the heart of their window. I argued last week, after what we heard Chris Collinsworth say, and we'll get to that in a sec, this is a guy they need if they want to capitalize on it and win a Super Bowl. I don't think they can do it without a guy like T. He's that important. But I'll say this, I wouldn't panic yet. I'm going to be optimistic here. Listen, Debo, you know him, you love him, helped his team get to a Super Bowl again this past season. And I remember it was not too long ago, 2 seasons ago, I believe, the Niners locked him up long term after he said, too, I want a trade. So this is a way of you're not going to communicate, let me go all in here and turn up the heat on this thing for the front office and company. I'd like to hear from the Bengals side of things and get in the weeds on what they're thinking and what their negotiating tactic is here. If you think about it, the Bengals hold all the cards because of the tag. So T, I think, deserves to be taken care of. I hope it happens for him. I wouldn't consider him gone, though, just yet, because there is precedent, a glaring one with Debo, of things eventually working out. But if he does get traded, per Chris Collinsworth's, sort of thought process here, it's not the worst year to do it, because this is a deep receiver class, and I'm sure that's what the front office is thinking about, right? Between pick 18 and the rumored return of at least a second-round pick for T, that would put them in a real nice spot to retool the passing game quickly. Again, I don't want to see him leave by any means, but there are some options for Cincy if he does in fact force his way out. The sky is not falling yet in Cincy in a small window where Joe Burrow better stay healthy and they better get this done in 2024. Okay, we are almost there. It's free agency. It kicks off in less than an hour, which is insane. Ahead of that, I want to give you some intriguing players and sort of set the table for where they stand right now. So this isn't the 5 best or whatever. That's not I'm not ranking the list. But these are sort of fascinating situations to me. I'm going to go at number 5 with my guy, Gabe Davis. Hey, listen, I didn't get to see him at Super Bowl for some reason. I feel like there's, no one talking about him in this class. There was a frustrating end to the season for the Bills passing game, but Gabe put up 7 touchdowns per season in his career. That is consistent. I think he would like a bigger role even. I think he can handle it. He's been a beast in the playoffs, very dependable. And it seems like he's been around forever, right? Like he's been around years. He hasn't even hit his 25th birthday. So I think he could end up having a breakout season wherever he goes. We're hearing things like, oh, Jacksonville as an option. His former teammate, Mitch Morse, he landed there, by the way. I like the fit with Trevor, with Christian Kirk. I would not hate that for Gabe Davis. Also, Carolina talked to the Teppers about this. Like maybe get him in the mix too as a potential number 1 for Bryce Young. All right, at number 4, I'm gonna go back to that full screen, I guess. We're just gonna keep this up this whole time? Okay, sure. Let's see. Let's go. Listen, this dude hit that dreaded running back number, turning 30 in January, but he showed he still has plenty left in the tank. Let's reveal. Are we doing this like a reveal? Sure, Derrick Henry. Just under 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. And we know that O-line, we talked to Taylor Lewan about it week in, week out. They were struggle busing all season long. So you have to figure he's going to a contender. That's what we want. All I keep saying as I sit here week in, week out is I would like to see Derrick Henry in position to win a ring, somewhere that he can go and like get a team over the top, make things interesting. He deserves it. A team deserves it with his services here. I've been talking about Baltimore as a perfect spot for him since the trade deadline. So Eric DeCosta, I yelled at you about wide receivers and you added a bunch. Let's do this. You added Zay, you added Odell, who was rocking the Vanity Fair party last night. Get yourself a king. Get yourself Derrick Henry. Him and Lamar doing stuff in that backfield together, oh my goodness, it could take the Ravens offense to the level it needs to be in the AFC. Okay, at number 3, I'm gonna go with a guy who I love and I hope he plays another like 5 years. And he might not, but that doesn't mean that he cannot lead your team to the promised land, Devin White. Okay, former All-Pro, rough year. He got benched in the playoffs, I hate that, but he's 26, okay? We've seen how good it can be. I for sure thought he was 30, just because he's got the veteran presence. He's been there, done that. He's a Super Bowl champion, all of that. I don't know that we've even seen, have we seen his peak, how good he could be? He may not have the payday coming that we would have expected a few years ago, but he could end up being a massive steal for a team. You put him in a Cowboys defense, that front 7 with Micah Parsons. How about the Steelers? They're clearly doing business. Put him alongside TJ Watt. A little change of scenery, maybe gets him back to the player that we know and want him to be. At 2, I'll go Kirk Cousins. Let's do the quarterback here. We'll ask Matt Ryan about him in a couple of minutes. At this point, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of momentum towards him going back to Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, you know, he's motivated by the market. He's a different kind of quarterback, and he's going to end up just set for life because of it. He's awesome. But if he lands with the Falcons, or if he lands with, like, the Raiders, there's a bunch of quarterback-needy teams, right? It could be one of the moves that sort of, not even, like, for the team, but, like, there's division complexion at play here, okay? Like, there's division balance, you know, and if he goes to one of those. And if he sends the Vikings into rebuild mode fully, I would like that, because I think the Vikings are in this weird sort of purgatory of what are we? What is our identity? I've harped on this a bunch. And then I will mention, as we talked to Justin Jefferson, as I was in Cabo in December, we asked him about his extension. Why haven't you signed the paperwork, buddy? What's going on with you, Justin Jefferson? I asked him, and he kind of laughed it off. But truly, if you're Justin Jefferson and you're this amazing wide receiver, the hottest thing going before injury last year, and then, of course, after, like, you're not signing that piece of paper without knowing the plan at quarterback. So it'll be fascinating to see how all of that plays out. And I think the most, I mean, it's not ranked. I don't know why we're going 5-1 if we said we weren't going to rank these, but Saquon's probably at the top here, I would say. There's rumors flying around, so that's fascinating. It's everybody's favorite player. Epic NFC East battle brewing for the star running back, which is fun because Roseman's such a crazy person, and it'll be interesting to see if they can claw him away from a team that he's the focal point of. The Giants are an option, sure. The Cowboys and Eagles, they're circling like vultures, people, and beyond just like the nausea that it would induce to New York if Saquon signs with either of those teams, he's going to reignite whichever offense he goes to. And whichever of the 31 outside of the Giants, okay? And the Giants, I don't know what they're going to be aimlessly walking through the desert without him next year, in my opinion. I don't even care what the situation is. He is so meaningful. He's such a meaningful player in all phases. Jerry Jones, one of the few that really values running backs. We know that, right? He sticks to his running backs. He likes them. The Eagles are at their best when they have a ground game working, which it really wasn't last year. So landing Saquon would be a huge win for either squad, and that is a nightmare scenario for Giants fans. But it's a reality they got to face here. But in about an hour, if Joe Shane can't get it done, and hopefully he can't get it done. Guys, don't go anywhere. We got a big show. Matt Hamachek is here to talk Dynasty. We'll talk Brady Belichick. We will talk to Matt Ryan, who finally is gracing us with his presence, the 2016 MVP, hanging out with us, talking some of these quarterback things, and next.
Escapes, get a run, and some room, and a touchdown. Looking down the field in the end zone, touchdown. Ryan wants all of it, and he's able to get it.
Four-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro Offensive Player of the Year, I believe, and of course, MVP of the whole dang league, former quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, and now just a star in the CBS booth on Sundays. Matt Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, Kate. How you doing?
I'm so good. Listen, you've crushed it for CBS. Congratulations. Now you're a couple weeks removed for this season. How was your first sort of taste of broadcasting and that side of it?
Yeah, it was fun. You know, obviously it's a different challenge than playing. And so probably the first, there's a picture of that board that changed
so
quite
intense.
a bit as the year went on. But, you know, I think like the first half of the season, I was preparing like I was playing and you know, going through these things and trying to be a player, and realized very quickly that's not the gig. You know, you got to be on there talking about players, their personalities, different things like that, giving strong opinions. And it felt like I got more comfortable as the year went on. I was lucky to work with an awesome crew. Andrew Catalan, our play-by-play, is fantastic. I was with Tiki in the booth and AJ Ross on the field. So lucky to be around a great team to start.
Now, you haven't retired. Let's just get to this. You're listed as a free. We're here an hour away from free agency, and you're listed as a free agent. I checked this morning. What gives?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's calling. You know, there were some times during the season last year where you know, there was maybe not like serious interest, but you know, my agent kind of hit me up and talking to different teams. And for me, it was just about, you know, you never know if the right situation was going to present itself. I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. I think the league calendar year is going to change, and you know, maybe something will come in the next couple of weeks.
Something will come as far as retiring, or something will come as far as you're like playing for a team?
Yeah. I think as far as retirement.
Okay. Well, that will be. Listen. I'd like to see you. I was going to pitch Vegas to you. I think Vegas would be a nice little destination for Matt Ryan.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time I got pitched on it, but you know, that was a long time ago. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing now, and excited about calling games.
I love that. Oh, and you killed it, and I've just enjoyed the process. It is so intense to be in those booths. So amazing job by you as we sort of chew on free agency. And you're the perfect person because we have all this quarterback stuff going on. Even before the window opens, Russell Wilson, he signs a one-year deal with the Steelers. This happened last night. What are your sort of first reactions to this whole Tomlin, Russell Wilson era that's going to happen?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Steelers, right? Like in terms of taking on Russ's contract, it's not that big of a lift. I mean, Denver's doing most of the work there. You've got an opportunity to see if you squeeze out a little more from Russell's career. It's a team that I feel like with the way they played defense last year, I mean, they can win. And Mike Tomlin has proven time and time again he can coach. So looking at what Russ can do, we called a couple of their games last year. He can still extend plays. And that's something that he's done at a high clip his entire career. It's going to be interesting to see if he and Arthur Smith can kind of get onto the same page, getting some of those things on schedule, right? They're going to run the football. There's no mistake about that. They're going to be a run-first football team. But if you could get Russ to make some more plays in rhythm and then ask him to extend plays and do what he's always done, I still think there's juice left in the tank, and I'll be curious to see how it shakes out there in Pittsburgh. You
know Arthur well, of course. Is it a good fit between those two?
I think so. You know, I think they're going to run the football, which I think is going to fit in with what Pittsburgh historically has liked to do. I think when you look at the Steelers of kind of the mid 2000s through, the 2010s, Ben Roethlisberger was a guy that could extend plays. They would run the football. I don't think they're going to be as heavy drop back pass dominant as maybe some of those times during Big Ben's career. And they're different players, but both those guys had the ability to extend plays. And I think that it comes into play when you're playing in Pittsburgh, you're playing good defense. You could be playing in bad weather as the year goes on. That rhythm passing game sometimes doesn't show up. And so I think running the football, kind of doing some of the off-schedule things that Russ can do, I think it could be a good fit.
I mean, Russ is still his most dangerous, in play action. So that's a great point, and hopefully that happens. But are we just giving him this job? Is it not a competition? I'm confused. Like, isn't Pickett still in play? And is that good for Russell Wilson to have a little competition, a little light under his butt?
Yeah, I think competition's always a good thing. He's probably going to have to go earn it. But what's curious to me is, Kenny Pickett was fairly healthy at the end of the year, and they went with Mason Rudolph. And so I don't feel like it's a glowing endorsement from the building on Kenny Pickett. But we'll see. We'll see how this offseason shakes out. I think if it were to me, kind of handicapping this horse race right now, I'd have to go with Russ.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay, let's get to Kirk Cousins. Because it's just his whole career is fascinating. The business side of it's fascinating. He's hitting free agency for the second time. Matt, this doesn't happen. Back-to-back tags in Washington, that was weird. Because quarterbacks at this level, they do not hit the market. They extend like you did. They stay in the one place. Where should Kirk Cousins go?
All right, listen, from a business standpoint, you're right. I never in 15 years of playing got to hit free agency. And it's an interesting space to be, particularly when you're still kind of in the middle in that prime stage of your career. He's now going to be able to do this twice. We'll see how he comes back from the Achilles injury and how healthy he is. If you're asking me the best fit, I heard you guys kind of teasing the Raiders a little bit before. I think it's one of two spots. I think you're either staying in Minnesota because of the familiarity with Kevin O'Connell, and it's seamless. The transition is you're right back into what you've been doing before. They've got good weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Or it's Atlanta. And I might be, biased on this one in terms of, my affinity for the Falcons for a long time. But I think he makes a lot of sense in Atlanta in terms of, they're a good football team. They played good defense last year. I think they got plenty of skilled positions, tons of first rounders all over the place that he could come in and I think make better. And I don't think they'd have to give up too much in terms of like contractually, depending on how that, looks, to still not draft the guys, to still not draft a quarterback for the future. If they're thinking about maybe 4 years for Kirk Cousins, try and create a Green Bay situation, who has been so successful in doing that the last two times with their quarterbacks.
So he's a fit. They should go for him. If you're talking to Mr. Blank, you're texting him. I know you've got, 15 years. You know the innards of that building. You're saying go do this, be aggressive, and go get it done.
Well, I think you do one of two things. I think you're either aggressive and you go get Kirk Cousins, or you're going to have to trade that pick. You're going to have to trade up if they fall in love with one of these guys at the top of the draft. Either way, I think you've got to be aggressive if you're Atlanta. They're in a position where the roster is too good. They've got to go find a guy that can, be the point man for them, whether it's a rookie and you've got to trade up or whether it's going and signing Kirk Cousins.
Baker just got this deal done. Kirk Cousins comes to the Falcons. Are they instantly the favorite in the division?
I think so. I really do. I think if he comes there, we had a bunch of the NFC South games with our crew last year, and we saw everybody. And, outside of the quarterback play for the Falcons, they were probably the most complete team when you're talking about what they had in the offensive line, running back position, wide receiver group, playing that good defense last season. I do think you get a veteran quarterback in there, given that group. I think they become the front runner in the South.
Let's say you're making the decisions. You can trade for Kirk Cousins, or you can do the other thing. You Google Falcons quarterback, and it's tied to Kirk Cousins, and also trade for Justin Fields. What do you think is a better decision or better fit?
Well, I think Kirk, and for the reason, that Zach Robinson comes in as their offensive coordinator, right? And this is a guy that the scheme is built very similar to what Kirk has played in his entire career. Kevin was in LA and went to Minnesota from LA. So he's got that tie to the Sean McVay system. Kirk's time in Washington was heavily, based on that system. So I think, for me, when I look at a scheme fit, I think Kirk makes more sense given that they hired Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, another branch from that McVay tree, I do believe. So it is, right? It all makes sense. Okay, so I'm a Chicago girl. Justin Fields, what does Chicago do? Every day I feel like I change my mind on what they need to do at quarterback and what needs to happen with Justin, who I think is just a victim of timing in the business and all of this.
Yeah, this is the rough part of the business, right? Is that, Chicago makes that trade last year to get DJ Moore and then move away from that number 1 pick. And Carolina, goes out and plays the way that they do. So Chicago sits with that number 1 pick. I thought Justin played well down the stretch last season. After he came back from the injury, I thought it was some of the most consistent football he's played in his young career. But it really boils down to, if you feel like Caleb Williams is the generational talent that so many people do feel like he is, you can't pass up on that opportunity. And it's not necessarily a slight at Justin. I think it's just the situation that presents themselves. If it's me, I think they take Caleb Williams and you try and get what you can get for Justin Fields. But I do think Justin Fields is a starter in this league, given the right situation. I think in a system where you give him the keys to go play the way that he's capable of playing, I think he can be successful.
I think Baker Mayfield is such a good lesson in this for everybody and for Justin Fields. It's so hard to rewrite how people look at you, but system timing matters. Like, you look at the Browns experiment, highly drafted, goes there, doesn't work out, tries it at Carolina, doesn't work out. And now we're looking at a $100 million man, thrown to Mike Evans week in, week out in a division that's very winnable. Like, it is you can change the narrative. Timing, position, support, surroundings really matter. So I'm thinking about the lesson in this. Even I'm looking at Baker Mayfield on this 3-year deal. What is the lesson in that for all of us?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think you don't play this position in a vacuum, right? No matter how talented you are, you don't go out there and you can't just make things happen unless you've got good protection in front of you. I say it all the time, you can't complete passes laying on your back. You need to be upright. You need to have windows to throw. And then you need guys to catch the football, right? You need guys to go make plays. You need all of those things. And then you need a staff that can bring out the best of what you have in terms of abilities. And not every place has all of those pieces together, particularly when you're drafting early, like a Chicago did for a Justin Fields, or Cleveland did at that time for Baker Mayfield. In a lot of those situations, you're going into rough organizations that have struggled. I was so lucky. I feel so lucky in my career. I ended up in Atlanta. It was a good football team that had these crazy extenuating circumstances the year and a half prior to me getting there, with Mike Vick going, to prison and all of those things coming together. They had this debacle of a year with Bobby Petrino. But the football team that was there was really good. We had pieces. I had Roddy White as a receiver. I had Michael Jenkins, who was really good. Michael Turner in the backfield, a good offensive line. All those things helped accelerate my career, and I benefited as a result of the organization being fairly stable when I got there.
I literally, while you were talking, I was texting my producer saying, I wonder if he feels lucky with how, where he went in his career and staying that and all of that. And you answered the question for me before I even got to it. Was there something that changed the narrative around you in your winning that MVP in 2016? Did you feel like you were seen a different way?
I don't know. Honestly, I never really worried about that. I think, when I first got into Atlanta, it was difficult because, Mike Vick is such an icon in this city. And so you're replacing this guy, and I'm a completely different style of player. And so it wasn't going to be, this same style of play. And so, my immediate defense mechanism when I was a young player was to just kind of not worry about all those other things and just, my game. And the same thing happened later in my career, right? It was just, hey, don't worry about all the other stuff. Just
Right.
just kind of focus on being the best that you can be. And so I never really felt like it was that different after the MVP, to be honest with you.
And did you enjoy the MVP at all? You got it, and the Super Bowl happened the next day, and then like, did you ever look back and say, "Oh, I won MVP," or was it sort of like swept under the rug of heartbreak?
Yeah, it was tough timing. You know, like you have this
I've never
really
thought
cool
of it before
personal-
because I'm always like Matt Ryan MVP, but you're probably like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, the timing. Yeah, you find out the night before,
Yeah.
and then I think it's cool now that the NFL honors are like Thursday, so
Yes.
there's a couple of days you might be able to soak it up for a day or something like that if you're playing in the game. For me,
yeah.
it was the night before. I wasn't even there. I was in a team meeting.
Matt Ryan,
I
me and
found out a
Peter,
little bit-
Matt, Peter Schrager and I sat next to your mom and dad.
Yeah, that's right. They
No,
were
like
there.
literally, we sat next to them, and we're like, and then of course that happened. But I mean,
Yeah.
it does mean something. It does. I want you to know. It's.
Listen, it totally means. I mean, it means a lot to me. I'm very proud of what I accomplished. But in the immediate aftermath, though, it was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we got to go play this game tomorrow, and then obviously, that game shook out the way that it shook out. So, obviously disappointing and heartbreaking with that loss. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'm really proud of. And from a personal standpoint, I mean, you can't ever take it away, right? Like that year, I was the MVP of the league, which to me, I'm extremely proud of.
Listen, if we're talking about Kirk Cousins getting another Brinks truck backed up into his driveway coming off an Achilles injury, and you've got A-Rod doing what he's doing, you're not telling me you could come back and rewrite a little bit and keep it going? Matt, I don't believe you.
Listen, I was really fortunate to play at the time that I did. You got to remember when I came into the league, there was no rookie, kind of capped allotment of what you can make. So
You're
I'm going
okay.
to sit here and not complain for 1 second about how my career shook out.
That's very smart. I want to ask you about Mac Jones before you go, because he got traded to the Jags. This happened yesterday morning, and I thought it was one of those like fake accounts. It was like, what am I? I'm not going to retweet this because I don't want to look God. But then it happened. He's backing up Trevor Lawrence. It sort of shocked me that a lot of Jags fans are upset by the deal. They only gave up a 6th rounder here, Matt. How are you viewing this trade from the perspective of Jacksonville?
I view it as no downside. You talk about you giving up a 6th round pick. This was a first round pick just a couple of years ago that was in a Pro Bowl. And given the circumstances that went on in New England too, I think it's hard to have a complete picture of what Mac Jones is as a quarterback in this league. And to me, Trevor Lawrence had those injury issues at the end of last season. He toughed it out and he gutted through it, which is admirable, but you never know when that's going to happen. And if they truly believe they're a playoff team, you look at Doug Peterson's experience in Philadelphia going to win that Super Bowl. I mean, Nick Foles was the guy who really stepped in and played after the Carson Wentz injury. And so I look at it and say, if they're really trying to win a Super Bowl, if they're trying to build it, and you can get a backup quarterback that has so much starting experience, ability to go win games, you never know what's going to happen to Trevor Lawrence. And if you can acquire a guy for a 6th round pick, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
No downside, he says, all upside. I love it for Jacksonville. I don't know why these fans aren't into it. They should all be very excited. Have we not learned how important the backup quarterback is in the National Football League? I mean, Trevor Lawrence, also the way he plays and trucks guys all the time. Like, you want to have a serviceable backup there. Listen, we have this director, Matt Hamachek, on the show after this, and I don't know if you're watching the Dynasty on Apple, if you're like hiding under the covers because they showed. I mean, this many years later, somehow 28-3 is still a thing, which is crazy. But I got to ask you about Super Bowl 58. You're there, you're with CBS, a great company, of course. You're having so much fun with them being in the broadcast booth. They had the Super Bowl, it was amazing. You're watching Shanahan and the Niners lose after having a lead at halftime, right? Then you got the flashbacks to 28-3 that are going on around the internet these days because of this Dynasty thing. I want to ask you, as I was watching the Super Bowl, the way the end of the first half shook out, Brock Purdy ended up going an hour of real time, really, like legitimately an hour between pass attempts. And it made me think back to Super Bowl 51 because it was sort of similar to what you dealt with. And I think it is an underrated factor in the game. Deebo Samuel told me as much when he was on the show last week. Now, I look at you and or that team and I'm thinking the Alford pick six, you didn't touch the ball for over an hour as well. From the 9-minute mark of the second quarter all the way through the Lady Gaga situation. How much can a layoff like that affect an offense?
I think it's hard, because in your entire life, right? You played football since I was in second grade. At no point do you have this break that is as long as that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, unless you're in a weather delay or whatever, I actually thought we came out in the third quarter. We played good football. So I'm not sure that it was the fourth quarter in our situation that was more of the issue, but. It does affect you. You sit there for a long time. We tried to prepare for it. We practiced for it during the week of kind of taking those extended breaks in the middle of practice and coming back out. It plays a factor. But once you get on the field, honestly, you forget about, at least for me, I forgot about those things as a player. I think it's a deal, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. Like, you still have to go out there and be able to perform.
Matt, you guys went 3 and out on the first drive of that second half, I believe.
Yeah, 3 and out. That
what
happens.
Are you talking about?
We were playing the Patriots, but we still scored some points in the third quarter. We did all right. I blocked that 3 and out of my mind.
I like that you're giggling about it now, which I had Deebo on heartbroken weeks after. How long does it take to giggle about it?
It takes some time. 2-3 weeks later, I was not giggling about anything in that game. But here's the thing. I think that as disappointing as it is, right? A healthy dose of perspective. Life moves on, and you've got to keep moving forward. If you can't look back on the things that have happened in your life, good or bad, and this is just my take on it, good or bad, and be able to learn lessons from it, be able to laugh about it, and be able to move on. I just think it's a healthier approach to living your life. It's
a beautiful advice on the field and off of it. When a Lady Gaga song comes on, do you turn the dial? Can you listen to Lady Gaga?
I'm okay with Lady Gaga. Okay. Like I think I didn't see any of the show, and so we're sitting in there. We can't hear anything, but. To be honest with you, one of the things people were trying to console me with afterwards was how crazy it was, the halftime performance or whatever that she went on with it. So that's kind of my recollection of her performing at halftime.
Amazing. Well, I wish you nothing but luck and further success in what you're doing with CBS. I'm not ready for you to officially retire. It sounds like you're sorting through it. And just a hell of a career, consistent as can be, on the field, off the field, just a pleasure. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And honestly, breaking down these quarterbacks, it's no easy task, and I really appreciated the insight.
All right, thanks, Kay. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Matt. Talk to you soon. We'll get you set with Matt Hamachek next. Yeah, we're probably going to talk a little 28-3, just because it was the highlight of the episode. It sort of made sense. Which quarterback goes where and why. We're going to talk about more free agency after this. But yes, Matt Hamachek joined the show. We're going to get you set on some prospects too. Brock Bowers. Thing about Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, guys. Whoa. One thing about him is that he may be one of the best tight ends coming out of college that we've ever seen. I'm not being hyperbolic on a Monday. Calm down. He played 3 years for the Bulldogs, 3-time All-American, a 2-time national champion. I sound like Count Dracula. That's okay. First ever 2-time Mackey Award winner, best tight end in the country 2 times. He is smooth, people. He is a smooth kiddo, and he's just crushing it. Traditional tight end, sure, great. In the slot, sure, booyah. He gets the ball in the run game as well. He really does it all. Look at these numbers. He put up over 2,700 yards and 31 touchdowns in 40 games, okay? Listen, I know this viral, unflattering picture with Gronk during the Super Bowl week has some people questioning his size and strengths and entire existence, really. And we appreciate you, Senator Phil Perry, for the love here on the Twitterverse, for letting us use this picture. Even if you didn't, sorry, don't sue us. It took Brock's mom tweeting this other angle to calm everybody down, which it did. Either way, we know success comes in all shapes and sizes in the National Football League. And while he didn't work out in Indy, he's going to take the field this Wednesday. Georgia Pro Day. And I think he'll have people forgetting all about that stupid picture. Bowers is projected as a surefire first-round pick. Our friend, NFL Media, Daniel Jeremiah, and others have him going 18 to Cincinnati. Listen, Cincy hasn't had a true elite, can-do-it-all tight end with Joe Burrow. The thought of him with Jamar makes the T thing a little easier. The thought of him and T and Jamar, too fun. And I'm going to say it. He could be the type of difference-making dude that puts the Bengals on the fast track to New Orleans next February. Go to the Bengals at 18. That's what I'm wishing for them. There you guys go. Okay, we've got more news to get to here. Hamilton, can I get my hammer cam on here? Do you really think things are about to get crazy in 20 minutes, or is this one of those slow burns?
It's hard to predict. I think just this free agency in general, though, is so interesting because you have those moving pieces at quarterback. Like you said, with Kirk Cousins, we don't see quarterbacks of that caliber hit free agency other than Kirk Cousins very often. So that could change the complexion of everything. The Saquon thing here in New York, that everybody's anxious about that. There's a lot that's going to be happening, and it could, we've seen it before. As soon as it hits noon, things start snowballing pretty quickly. If
you had a wish for Saquon, obviously you grew up in New York, Giants fan, do you want him to stay there, or do you sort of wish him to go to the Cowboys and maybe do some damage late in the playoffs? Because I sort of wish, as much as I love Saquon and what he means to New York, I have a very similar Derrick Henry vibe to it, where he's young enough that he can go somewhere, and what he will do on another offense that's ready to go could go super far in 24.
Yeah, and I think, there is that part of it that, he's in the prime of his career. He spent so many years in New York on these losing teams. I agree. Like, you kind of, if he does leave the Giants, go to a Baltimore, though. Don't go to Dallas, go somewhere like that, where you can have a chance at a ring. It is going to be hard if he goes to a Dallas or a Philly, and it does hurt his relationship with Giants fans. It will ultimately do that, and that's something that again, if he wins, it'll be worth it. If he's able to get a ring or just play some meaningful football in the playoffs, it'll be worth it. But it will impact his legacy and his relationship with these fans.
We'll see what happens at noon Eastern, right? So 9 o'clock my time. But we did have some other news, so we should celebrate it. We're big Chris Jones fans. We love him. And it's, remember he was sitting between those two mobsters, will he, won't he, whatever, then he wins another Super Bowl, and he's an absolute monster. And he got it done, right? We found out he is back on a 5-year deal. He is now the richest D tackle in NFL history. Sorry, Aaron Donald. The biggest question mark to the Chiefs' ability to three-peat is now removed. I think this is like Brett Veach, mwah, kisses, flowers, roses for you. Well-deserved deal, by the way. Mwah, mwah, mwah. European kisses for Chris Jones this morning. But I do think that the butterfly effect, whatever, for this is L'Jarius Sneed probably traded. What do you guys think? Probably, definitely much more likely. They were around $1 million under the cap before this Jones deal, right? So very hard, as we all knew going into it, to keep both, especially given what Sneed's message was to old Vici on Up and Adams.
Pay me. Pay me. That's what I got to say. Pay me.
Okay. I mean, I don't even know. I think that we have to wrap it there. Pay the man. Sneed deserves to be paid, deserves the big old bag. And while it would stink to trade him, if you're Kansas City, no Chiefs fan wants to hear me talking about this. It's sort of another opportunity for this Chiefs squad, which you can't put it past them in any level. We saw them do it without Tyreek. Veach is going to move him, and you got to trust that he's going to bring in another player And draft picks, they've got all this. They're going to get that from this sort of trade, and they're going to make the team better and deeper in another weird way. So we'll see if each can sort of do it again, lightning in a bottle, and trade another superstar and turn that into gold, like Rapunzel. We'll see. I know it's easier said than done. Other news we should touch on before we bring in Matt Hamachek, the Jerry Jeudy news. Okay, Broncos trade him to Cleveland this weekend. They in exchange for a 5th and 6th round pick. This is a very fresh start. I like this for Jerry Jeudy, honestly. He gets to be alongside fellow Alabama alum Amari Cooper. He was really close with Cortland Sutton, so I hate to see two besties break it up. But, I mean, this could give Cleveland, they got to be happy, a 1-2 punch if Jerry can actually play up to his potential. That's the story of Jerry Jeudy until he changes it. You're brilliant. You're such a talented player. Play up to it. Stay healthy. If you focus on it from the Broncos side of things, it doesn't seem like the best return from Denver on the surface, like just 6 picks in this upcoming draft to 8. They did clear just under $13 million in cap space. That gives them $30 million heading into free agency. Not too much, but they do move on from a situation. I remember they were like yelling at each other on the sideline. I remember the thing happened with Jerry Jeudy late in the season. Like it wasn't working out between the two. And yeah, and this is the game I think I was at Hamilton with Hamilton. And they weren't, super happy. Is this why he's not there? No. But I do, this is clearly a boiling point with Jeudy and Peyton. He dropped 2 big passes in that game. Coach is trying to coach him up, and it didn't seem to be well received. So I don't know that this was it or whatever, but there's a disconnect here, and seemingly one throughout Jerry's, tenure and his moment there in Denver. I hope he can rewrite it. Fresh start, like I said, I like this for him. Sean Payton, not a guy who's afraid to move on from talent when things are not meshing. I think he's got a big idea for what he wants this team to be. He talks about culture right away. Russell, Jeudy, Justin Simmons. Remember last year, at the right time, he cut Randy Gregory and Frank Clark mid-season. So whatever he's trying to do, buy-in-wise, he's going to do. And I don't know if that brings some accountability on other players. I don't know how it's going to go. And we'll see if these changes actually make things better and if the Broncos have enough talent left in the building to compete in that crazy division. Critical offseason, goes without saying for Peyton and the Broncos front office, because they got to get things on track with not a ton of room to do it, but they do have a couple more draft picks and some cap space to retool the roster. All right, we're going to be back with Mike Hamachek. Checking down all the quarterbacks and all the destinations and the business side and the on-field side for us. Now, my next guest, the director and executive producer of the brilliant 10-part docuseries, The Dynasty, New England Patriots on Apple TV+, Matt Hamachek. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm better than Matt Ryan having to relive 28-3 thanks to you.
I can't believe you went there. I was wondering when I saw he was on today, but that's got to be brutal, right? I
mean, you tell me from what your rehashing of it, how brutal must that be for Matt Ryan?
I think of all the football things that we worked on, meaning this story is so much bigger than football, right? But there were a few moments in this, like the snow game and like this game, that we really had to expand on. And the 2 people who actually cut the first version of this are 2 guys who were working on the project who grew up 2 towns outside of Foxborough. And one of them was actually at the game live, and the other one was abroad. And I hope I'm not blowing up his spot here by saying this, but he actually went to bed in the middle of the game because he was just like, there's no way they're coming back. And then all of his brothers woke him up and said, you've got to turn on the TV. The Patriots are coming back and all this stuff. So look, it was one of those things when we were putting it together, just like, this is almost too good to be true. It feels like you're making a fiction movie about a football team coming back from that much of a deficit. So I can only imagine being on the other side of it.
I went home in the 3rd quarter.
Oof.
I did. That's okay, because then I got to relive the brilliant theater of it all on The Dynasty, which everybody needs to check out. Episode 7. It's called Under Pressure. Tom Brady's feeling it. Belichick drafts Jimmy G, which I've always said, I was like, he was the key to all of this. That's what I've always said about him. Tom gets thrown under the bus for Deflategate, the whole thing. So for a guy that always seems to be on the quest for approval, or at least at that point, how did this moment in time change Tom Brady?
I think when we talked to everybody, there was a few things that they talked about. First, the Tom Brady story really starts at Michigan, right? Where he goes there. He's a seventh string quarterback. By the time of his fifth year senior year, he works his way up to starter, and then this kid Drew Henson comes in, who, as Tom says, is bigger, smart, faster, has a better arm, more elusive. And Coach Carr wants to go with him, and then he gets drafted. He's 199th pick, and then he goes to the Patriots, and he's accumulating all these Super Bowls. And then, Deflategate happens and everybody's sort of coming after him. And meanwhile, I think rightfully so, given all the evidence, Coach Belichick has drafted his replacement in Jimmy Garoppolo. And that is a story as old as time as the NFL, right? I mean, I'm a Packers fan. It's, it's Favre to Rodgers, Rodgers to Love, all of that stuff is happening. But, I think, on one hand, you have a coach who says the evidence says, you're not gonna be, as Belichick says, age is age, right? And then you have another quarterback. You have a quarterback in Tom Brady who basically says, "I'm playing until I'm 45, and I'm going to be the exception to the rule." And that sort of is the beginning, as Robert Kraft says, of the tension in their relationship.
I really watched these episodes with you in mind, as far as you saying it's just there's no right or wrong. Everybody's sort of presenting their side of it, and you really see that in these episodes. I love Slater. You can have everybody can have their star and Strahan, but Slater crushes this thing. I loved seeing him get his moment.
It's the best. It's the best part of the whole thing.
He's the best.
They're going into all the detail about how hard Belichick was on Tom, but he's also pointing out at the same time that's why it worked. Nobody was above the team.
Yeah, I loved hearing from him in this, but you spent a lot of time here focusing on how brutal Belichick was to Tom. Were you surprised by sort of the extent of that?
I was surprised by some of the details that people went into and the words that they used. You have Randy Moss saying he, decapitated Brady and all this stuff. But I think the thing that I hope people take away from it is, yes, it was obviously a hard environment to play in. And yes, this is part of the friction that inevitably ended the 20-year dynastic run. But I also think that, like Matthew Slater points out in it, I don't think they have the success that they do without that culture and without that system where every rookie comes in, here's Belichick tearing Brady's head off and says, okay, if Tom Brady's taking it, then I better too. And I think some people look at this and they say, well, why didn't Bill change? And my answer to that is, why would somebody who's won 6 Super Bowls change the culture that's created it for that much time? And so I like I said, I've always said to you, and I appreciate you pointing it out, that, I really do see both sides in this. I see why he drafted Jimmy G. I see why it upset Tom. I see why Belichick never changed. It all makes sense to me.
We have 2 episodes left. I have goosebumps thinking about it. We have 20 seconds. Plug the last 2 episodes of the Dynasty.
Well, I sort of think of it as nothing lasts forever. And this is unfortunately the part where this thing that is remarkable mostly for the fact that it lasted 20 years, unfortunately comes to an end and the tension boils over and Tom leaves.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see it. You've done a brilliant job. It's amazing, guys. Check out the last 2 episodes. I can't wait to see the brilliant theater of it all. This week, this Friday, those drop on Apple TV+. Matt, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
2 Matts and a K this show. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.